exactly 5 minutes past the hour of 12. Now, today talking the Uganda Securities Exchange, and with me in studio today is a very special guest, Mr. John Were, who is a research officer from the exchange, Uganda Securities Exchange. He's a man of a lot of experience when it comes to exchange, what happens at the exchange, but also in the banking sector, in financial markets. He has a wealth of experience, and I'm really to have you, Mr. John. You're most welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, and Brother Tony. I'm glad to be here, and we appreciate Smart 24 for the wonderful work you're doing of driving business. I think this is a dream come true for the properties behind this, and for us as Ugandans, especially those of us in the world and the finances, we truly appreciate you, and we really want to set this go to the next level.
Yeah, I really anticipated this because when you look markets, the pricings, and many questions come to people's minds, especially the common person. And we would like you to first and foremost kind of break down what an exchange is. What is a securities exchange?
Okay, maybe the other thing I need to start with is the subject of market, yes. The exchange, the capital markets is generally one of those subjects which is perceived to be hard and far detached from the common person. So in this whole conversation, I will try as much as possible to bring this down to the common person, literally the Muntuwa Wansi. Yes. So I will try as much as possible to avoid the technical jargons that we throw to each other when we are in boardrooms and having conversations about this with the financial experts and so on. And for starters, the exchange, basically every time you hear about the securities exchange, this is simply a market. Just like we have Owino market, Akare Kawana, this market of ours in Owino, or any other market in any locality. But the difference with this one is it's a financial market which focuses on the sale and the selling and the buying of financial securities, or rather you can call them financial instruments, financial assets. So basically it's like any other market, just like you have a window, but instead of having beans and the soya and the sugar, we focus on financial instruments.
Yes. You talked about not using jargons. I kind of feel already instruments is a jargon. So to break down a little bit for the viewer also, and in this we can even use Uganda. What is instrument chechi?
Okay, so
financial instrument.
Basically we're talking about financial instruments. Oyinzo jita financial asset. Kyekinte kina financial value kino muwendo ku ange y'ebyenfuna ate nga kisobola okugulibwa oba okutundiwa omuntu omwana akitwala yadde nga kibadde kikyo. Okugeza nja kuwa example of the most recent MTN IPO. Itugenda ma tujategeremu ku bigambo bino IPO kitegeeza ki and so on. Wesanga nti bali batunda emigawo ng'omuntu ajja sobola ogigula. Kati omugabo guno oba share gye tuyise financial instrument. Mu angle gye tuyise financial asset oba gye tuyise financial security. Amazima gali nti every subject has its own language, but we try as much as possible to bring this off the jargon to the everyday language that me and anybody else can understand. So basically at Uganda Securities Exchange or any other securities exchange, we are a market where these financial instruments, ebintu ng'emigawo, ebintu nga bonds, I now get to a point of explaining that, where they can change hands from one person to another. And it's not just Uganda that has a securities exchange. Or it is the way of doing things across the world, and it is actually the common way, or even the right way when it comes to the developed world. You will hear in terms of Bombay Stock Exchange, you will hear about Nairobi Securities Exchange. Every country almost in the world, you will state, I will tell you they have a stock market, they have a securities exchange. So basically this business is not an exception to your country.
Now let's look at these products, these financial instruments. In how many categories can you place, and what does each category have to offer?
Okay, thank you. Now when it comes to categories, they are depending on the market or on the exchange in question. But especially for developed countries like USA, when we talk about the Wall Street and so on, New York Stock Exchange, you will find quite many products. But as for Uganda Securities Exchange, I will focus on what we have currently. One of the products that we have is the equities.
Yes.
And the very product is, you can also call it shares. Just like you hear the word shares. Shares basically is a portion of ownership in an organization.
Okay.
So in this case, if Smart 24 was listed on the stock market and I have my 200,000, then I invest it, I buy shares, nengule migao Smart 24. That kind of Smart 24 that I bought is a share. Just like we used to draw pie charts, and the pie charts have shares in there. So the smaller bit of is a unit of ownership of a company. The smaller bit of Smart 24 is the share, and it's also what we call equities. So the equities and shares, they give me a right of ownership in an organization, or you can also call them a measure of ownership in an organization by someone. So at USE we have the shares, or that's the equities, as one of the financial instruments. So this particular one, whoever participates in or invests in gets a right of ownership in this particular organization where he's putting his money or this particular financial instrument. And then away from the shares, we also have the bonds. Basically, bonds in another language you can call it mabanja or just debts. So basically, the equity falls under equity finance, and then the bonds fall under the debt finance. So particularly when it comes to debts, it's another borrowing loan. When you go to the bank as an organization, say Smart 24 goes to bank X to get a loan, to get money, the money that you get is actually a bank loan. It's a loan. It's money you're getting from one institution to you, a particular institution alone. But when you come to us on US and you say, put us on your market, mutuanike wagulense tulabe. So individuals, companies can come and invest money in you. That's another, the other can invest money in you by you borrowing, you borrowing from them. That's what we call the bonds. So particularly bonds don't give the investors a right of ownership in a company. One of the owners for equity, or we began from the shares, call it equity, call it stocks, gives you a right of ownership. But for bonds, basically, they are lending money to Smart 24, but without necessarily becoming owners. Yes. And that's the corporate bond. So within there, we have the short term and the long term, but I will avoid the extreme side of the jargons. And then besides the bonds, besides what you can call the loans, we also have other options away from the loans. You can also come and invest at USE or any exchange by lending money to the government. So when the government wants to do what you can call domestic borrowing, one of the options is selling the treasury bonds and treasury bills, and also selling the government. So particularly bonds, whether they are government or they are corporate bonds, that's long term. Tugambe bayinza ogamba twagala kwewola sente naye nga abatuwoza those who have given money, they will pay them back their money in 10 years. So which means maturity bond yo sente government zeba yewoze 10 after 10 years have ended. Short run, you can earn what we call the coupon rate in the short run. As time goes on, then when it matures, then you can get the principal jiwawola or that you gave the government. And if it's a corporate bond, you can get the principal which you gave to the company. So basically, when it comes to bonds, they can be corporate bonds. Those are the ones by companies, private companies, like your company or another company. And then they can be government. Yeah. And away from the government bonds, we can also have the treasury bills. And these ones are short-term financial securities or mechanisms, ways basically that the government can use to borrow from the public through the securities exchange. 90 days and so on. It can be 6 months, it can be a year, but basically not exceeding a year. So basically those are some of the instruments that I thought I should focus on today, being that the ones we have at the moment yes. At USE.
Yeah. Now looking just a little into emigabo shares. Omuntu wagula emigabo kangeze mu MTN. They think probably I have to go maybe to MTN to work. I have to, how does it work? Nzenga aguzu mfuka chi mu company. Mfuka nga mukozi mfuka kubanga ngenda yo buli lunaku. So that's the question in people's minds, because some people think nagure migabo mu MTN, so I have to go to their offices, and they can demand for, they demand for salary, some demand for, returns. So what is my position as a shareholder?
Okay. Thank you so much, Tony. I think this is why we really need to appreciate you for this particular partnership that we have with you. You realize, truthfully, truth be told, this particular subject of the stock market is not a subject every person, the everyday person appreciates. Yebuku business oboli ya omuntu wabuliyo jayine bibuze biwera ku byagala okutegeera. Ate kati omuntu yakole wanti bulwasanga kyahategedde kati kyakola afa ku kyewala. The human being is built in such a way that every time they don't understand, they want to grasp the subject the best of their satisfaction, they will try to instead fear it or avoid it. But now that we are here, we will make sure we clear some of this myth and throw light on whatever needs to be clarified. So basically, when you buy shares into a company, you become one of the shareholders. So this particular company, let me say it has 100 shares. I'm using 100 shares just for demonstration. If the whole of Smart 24, I will use Smart 24 as an example. If Smart 24 is worth let me say 100. Okay, it's worth a smaller figure. It's worth a 10 million in terms of, that's the value of Smart 24. Of course, not as small as that. Just using a smaller figure for people to understand what I'm demonstrating. If Smart 24 is valued at 10 million shillings, and then the shares of Smart 24 are divided into 100 shares, then I come and buy one share. If I buy 10 shares of Smart 24, value is 10 million. And about, say, 10% of the 10 million. It means I'm paying the owners, the founders of Smart 24, 1 million shillings. Contribute towards the value of 10. Yes. But also, if I buy just one share, it means I'm paying just 10,000 shillings. So at the end of it all, the next any publicly listed company, any company on the market, say you go and buy shares in MTN, you go and buy shares in National Insurance Corporation, you are one of the owners. Like I said earlier, a share is a unit of ownership. So you become an investor in that particular company. The difference is this time you don't invest in Dalagwenyanya or some shop in the corner, but you're investing in a business idea that has already been proven, whose story you believe in has been existing over the years, and you also know it's a forming business, a going concern. It's not try and error. So basically, you become that when you buy shares, and you become one of the owners of this company, depending on how many shares you bought. So this comes with a number of advantages. With in most cases, with even the voting rights to be able to make decisions. Anyway, we'll get to that. But basically, you become one of the owners.
Not an employee.
Not an employee. Actually, I should add this. During the MTN IPO, I overheard some on social media using statements like, I bought shares of MTN. The next time I meet Mr. Mbile Charles, I'll be a comrade with him. So I've now joined him. On the table of MTN because you're now part of the owners of the entity. So this happens. This is the principle, be it in Uganda or be it in a stock market.
Now, looking at the stock market, we have the Uganda Securities Exchange. Tulina brokers, tulina Capital Markets Authority. Where does Uganda Security Exchange stand, and what are its functions in the financial markets segment? Okay,
thank you. Basically, the Uganda Securities Exchange itself. Okay. Yeah, but basically, Uganda Securities Exchange ke katale emigabo gyezitundiwa. Yes, we are the Nakasero market, but this time not of beans and not of tomatoes, but these financial instruments that all get shares, bonds, what have you, nebirala. So basically we are the market. You might not know what a good tomato looks like in this particular Nakasero called USE or called Uganda Securities Exchange. So you need somebody who is well versed with what good tomatoes look like, those which can stay longer, those which possibly have more, more nutrients. So this now they need for another person, one of the market participants, the one we call a broker. So when you want to buy shares, when you want to buy products sold in this particular market, which are the financial instruments, you don't come by yourself, you're represented by someone. And this particular someone is a company, but basically a licensed firm presents you to buy on your behalf and also gives you financial advice in terms of when you're making this, when you're in the journey of making decisions to actually participate in this. So USE, the Uganda Securities Exchange, Kekatale, Emega is the market, and then the brokers are the people who represent the investors who want to invest, or I call them the buyers who want to buy from this in this particular market. So and this, maybe something also I should highlight. These particular brokers, not anybody broker, they are particular people who are licensed to carry out this work. And every time you're in doubt, ngatomanyi bani bano benno genda ko nange nsole okwegata mweno business okusinga okutandika ka business akayinza okugwenkera nga simanyi na ngeri yakaddukanya njagala teeka sente bagamba teeka sente obolaba njagala teeka sente mu business eri proven. When amawulire ngenda okola Stanbic yakoze sente weziti, Uganda Securities yakoze wezi, nange njagala kwegata ku business idea eri proven. Naye ntandika togenda lwa mungu onoonya asking aye broker. These are not brokers kati nga abamayumba. Naye okugeza ti broker w'amayumba amanye ennyumba ennungi etundiwa asobola okulagira onoonya bisenge binagenda wali. So literally just like the real estate brokers, but these are now stock brokers, so they can give similar guidance just like the real estate broker can guide you on the choice of the house. And in Uganda we have the likes of SBG Securities, that is Standby Group Securities, so it's a licensed broker. You can engage them, they'll be able to help you to begin to serve you to begin participating in this market. We have the likes of Crescent Capital, that's a licensed broker. When you reach out to them, they'll be able to guide you. We have the likes of Day and Blair, also another entity, licensed brokerage that can serve you in terms of a potential investor wanting to participate. We have the UAP Financials, that's Old Mutual Financials. They carry out the brokerage work. You can feel free them if you want to begin participating in this kind of business. So away from USE, which is the market, and away from the brokers who are those who represent you and give advisory services, there are also other parties. Take an example, there is CMA. Now CMA is the Capital Markets Authority. And it was established through the Capital Markets Act of Uganda. So there's a full law that guides the activities of. So it is a social body, a government body that looks at regulating the market to ensure when you are playing this game of the capital markets, singa gubadde mupiira yeri free. Singa kabadde katale is the law enforcer mu katale ka Owino oba Kena Kasero, to ensure that there is robbing the other, nobody is giving the other fake money. It's only licensed brokers. Even becoming a broker, you can't become a broker without CMO scrutinizing you. Neba haka santo nagenda kola omulimu akwataganye ayamba na Uganda okulanga nga participating benyigira mu kahale kano mu business eno nga tebafunye kunyigirizibwa. Kitongole ekyokuntiku kalabala wa katale kano. So fake katale oye kalabala wa katale, then broker nga omanyi broker wa mayumba, just like a real estate broker represents you and guides you in terms of making financial decisions and investing in this market.
Mr. Were, we are going to go into a break. Though when we come back, people have a question. Ngabo gambe broker, but broker balina ekintu ekiri ku linnya lyawe ekitali kirungi. You know, that is why people say watching ejja kugenda nenoonyeza ennyumba. Why do we need a broker in between us and you as the exchange? We are going to come back on that. Okay. Also companies nga MTN eza listing tulina kitwalina IPO. IPO chechi. Nera nange mbani naka business nakali yo mo wino nange nsobola okajja nenka listing. We are coming back after a short break. Ladies and gentlemen, we are to Mr. Were John, who is a research officer from the Uganda Securities Exchange. We are talking about the exchange, the role and mandate of the exchange, how it can help you start investing in financial markets. We are going into a short break. We return shortly. Don't go anywhere.